Yesterday was my oldest's 11th birthday, so I had to take a break from literally everything to make sure I could make his day better. But I'm hyper focusing on this because there's a point and I want to get to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick up with my third standard before I hit work hours. My third standard focuses on pretty much the antebellum period, like after 1812, all the way through Reconstruction, which ended in 1877. The first thing that it has us look at is some of the stuff that led to the Civil War. We have debates over the expansion of slavery, including the Compromise of 1820, Compromise of 1850, the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which basically said that whoever happens to get there first can choose whether or not we have slavery. The Dred Scott decision, which determined that enslaved people were not citizens, and even if they were free, African American people were not citizens. So there's that. And then the creation of the Free Soiler and Republican parties, all very much a European lens on those. After that, we have the tariffs of 1828 and 1832, the nullification crisis, all that good stuff, the folks associated with that, all of them very much descended from the line of Europeans. Continuing down that road, we have the significance of the plantation system and dependence of the agriculture of cash crops, which was done by enslaved people. How the plantation systems and the northern factories had a reciprocal relationship. Opportunities to move west to expand enslavement, cash crops, king cotton, all very much a European lens. We do then get into the Civil War and we talk about the military strategies, the North versus the South. We talk about different turning points and key events in the Civil War. Along those lines, I guess the Emancipation Proclamation would be close. However, the Emancipation Proclamation didn't actually free a single person. It did have its own impacts, and I won't negate its significance. I won't do that, but it itself did not free a single person. So there's that. I'm going to still put that in the European lens era. It does, however, have us focus on the contributions of the 54th Massachusetts, which was an all African American unit, and then Robert Smalls, who helped stop blockade runners during the Civil War. So there's that. There's also an indicator focused on the efforts to recognize the rights of marginalized groups. So we do talk about the abolitionist movement. We talk a little bit about the women's rights movement at the time, a little bit, not too much, but a tad. We talk about the Declaration of Rights and Sentiments that came out around this time. However, it did very heavily focus on the rights of white women as opposed to all women, and we do know that that intersectionality is very important, and the lack thereof is pretty intentional. As for Native Americans, we do touch on Worcester versus Georgia, which basically did say that Native Americans did have a right to exist where they were, but then that is coupled with the Indian Removal Act of 1830, the Trail of Tears, and movement to reservations. There is some mention of the rebellions of enslaved people or people who were formerly enslaved. There's the Denmark-Vesey plot. We do talk about Nat Turner, but then that is also coupled with John Brown, which he did amazing work. Great work, but again, we have had a little bit of a revamp of our standards lately, and so we used to focus a little bit more on Reconstruction than we do. However, I very much think that Reconstruction is understanding how that went is vital to understanding why, especially my part of the country, developed the way it did. In our standards, it has us specifically talk about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which did grant an end to slavery except in punishment for crimes. The 14th Amendment and 15th Amendment, which grants citizenship to natural born as well as naturalized citizens of this country. And then the 15th Amendment gave all men the right to vote. We don't point out, but it does need to be pointed out, that Native American men were not included in this because they were not considered citizens until 1924. But different story, different day. We're not there yet. It does say to talk about the economic, political, and social impacts. I take this time to talk about how diverse the government of my state was at this time. However, it does end rather quickly, and it does because of the rise of extremist terrorist groups such as the KKK. So stick around for part 4.